and that a notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Express Times, and the notice of this meeting was posted on a bulletin board in the municipal building. Can we say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
Of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Catherine, would you please call the roll?
I did that already. That didn't help.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm just gonna call roll call. I'm on the phone with you. Roger Salties,
Here.
Ken Weiss,
Here.
Phil Corey,
here.
Stephen Willis,
Here.
Mike Shabra,
Here.
Dave Dallas,
Here.
Alan Dilly, Jennifer Fisher,
Here.
Jonathan A.
Here.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the
All right, I'm in.
Okay, good.
next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the February 9th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions?
I didn't notice anything, Roger.
What was that?
I didn't notice any changes. or
Okay.
corrections.
All right. All right, all in favor then of approving the minutes for the February 9th meeting, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Who was that? Stephen Willis?
Steve Willis. Yeah. I wasn't here.
Yep.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of bills. And we have three here. One from Collier for 707.47. Second one from Collier for 964.07. And one from Dolan for 676.30. Do I have a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second. It's Ken.
Yep.
All in favor of approving the bill?
I need a roll call.
You need a roll call on that.
Roger Salties,
Yes.
Ken Weiss,
Yes.
Phil Corey,
Yes,
Stephen Willis,
Yes.
Mike Shabra,
Yes.
Dave Dallas,
Yes.
Jennifer Fisher,
Yes.
Jonathan A.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the second hearing for the Tellius application. Is the attorney for the Tellius is here?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
So if I could just give everyone just a brief recap, Kara Kaczynski of McNally, Yaros, Kaczynski, and Lime here on behalf of the applicants. And the property, as you know, 10 Sydney Road, Block 4, Lot 2. And the application before you is to replace the existing single-family home located on the property. There are some variances that are required. Some are pre-existing nonconformities. Some are created as a result of the new dwelling. The variances are for minimum lot frontage, minimum lot width at the front yard setback, minimum lot depth, minimum front yard setback, and minimum side yard setback. And you heard some testimony last time from our witnesses with regard to the extent of those variances, as well as the planning proofs in support of what we believe will enable the board to grant those variances to the extent necessary. At the last meeting, you heard testimony from Mr. Taylor, one of the applicants, from our civil engineer and planner, Chris Nusser, and from our architect, Michael Hanrahan. And everyone is back here this evening to address the additional items that have been submitted to the board in response to some questions and comments, and will be available to discuss what has been submitted and also answer any other questions that the board may have. So unless the board has any questions right now, what I'd like to do is to call up our architect, remind him he's still under oath, and just have him go through the amended architectural plans that were provided to the board.
Ms. Kaczynski, before you do that, if you don't mind, maybe what we could do, since these are plans that have been revised, I just happen to take them in the order that I looked at them, and let's make it at A2, and that would be the revised plans, revised variance plans. They are revised to, I believe it's the 31st of March 2022, 5 sheets. There is also the revised architectural plans from Clark Caton Hints. That is sheet A-103. It has a revision date that says it is April 1st, 2001. I'm sure that's a typo. I think it's April 1st, 2002. So we'll make it, we'll assume that's the case. So that would be
22.
22, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So in any event, if you would like, and again, Mr. Hanrahan, you understand you were previously sworn and remain under oath, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And we can get a revised plan so that it reflects the 22 date as opposed to the 21 date, correct?
Yes, sir. I apologize for the typo.
No apology necessary, but we can proceed. Thank you.
Sure.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, so do we have the ability to place that up on the screen for everyone?
Yeah, I've
Trying my
allowed
best.
everybody to share, so.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, as we indicated, you're still under oath, so if you could just go through, I know it was a very minor change that had been requested at the last meeting, but if you could just point out to the board what's been changed as a result of their request.
Absolutely. Can everyone see my screen okay? There's a floor plan for the house currently
Yes.
being shown. Thank you for confirming. The changes, as Ms. Kaczynski said, relatively minor. The upper floor of the home, the master suite and 2 bedrooms, the 2 bedrooms were previously labeled studios. They are in fact bathrooms that are separated by a Jack and Jill restroom. So the change has been made to the sheet delineating those spaces as bedrooms.
And they are in fact bedrooms as opposed to studios, correct?
Yeah, the studio terminology, to be candid, the design of the home was done by an international firm. We are a local architect of record. It was their terminology to call them studios. We just didn't pick up the change in terminology when we submitted. They are in fact bedrooms.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, unless anyone has any other questions, just let me ask one. Mike, other than that change, are there any other changes to the architectural plans that were submitted?
No.
So unless anyone has any other questions, that's all I have of the architect.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if any of the board members have any questions. I agree with Ms. Kaczynski. It's a clarification, I would suggest, rather than a change, but it was something that the board picked up, and I think appropriately so.
Yeah, I have one question. In the master bedroom, or the master closet rather, there's a oval shaped something shown. What is that?
Bear with me a second. I should have not stopped sharing the screen. Screen share.
Could that be a tub?
Probably. I'm just going to call it up right now for clarification. And there we go. This oval here is what you're
Yes.
referring to, sir? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bathtub in the master bathroom changing area.
Just out of curiosity, why would you put a tub in a closet when you have a huge bathroom?
Avi, do you want to make comment on that, or do you want me to, you work this out with Mateus.
Mr.
You
Tellius,
may
I was
be
on,
on
I was on
mute.
mute. I'm sorry, I was on mute.
okay. And again, Mr. Tellius, you understand you remain under oath, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. There's no particular reason. It's just that I like showers. My fiance and soon to be wife likes tubs, so we did both.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else from the board have any questions? Does anybody from the public have any questions about this drawing? Okay, you can continue then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, I have our civil engineer and planner, Chris Nusser.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris. All right, so you're still under oath, and you heard the plans that have been referenced as A2 tonight. Those were prepared by your office, correct?
That's correct.
And they were prepared in response to certain questions and comments of the board.
Yes.
Okay, could you share your screen so we could put those up on the screen, and can you just go through the changes that they depict and how they responded to the board's questions?
Certainly. So we made a couple amendments here.
And just so that the record's clear, Chris, that you're referring to sheet 3 of 5.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're on sheet 3 here. The first thing that we did here was at the request of the board. I'm going to zoom in here. You can see the existing footprint of the dwelling. Now that outline is now added to the plan. That was a request from the board. So you can understand where the main portion of the house versus where the existing house is, how it is shifted to the north here. So up the page on the plan. Additionally, we added landscaping between the adjacent lot 1 to the north and our lot here along the property line. It's a mix of evergreen shrubs, rhododendron, viburnum, and some flowering shrubs and some flowering trees. So there are some flowering dogwoods in there, as well as sweet spire in this area here. So it's a very attractive screen to put in here, not a traditional, just let's put in some evergreens in here, but a more attractive, less, the applicant wanted to do something that wasn't so full of pine trees and have it look a little bit more attractive. So that's the buffer that we had put in place. Excuse me. Last time I had hid the fact that I had tested COVID positive that morning at the last hearing. Tonight I have laryngitis, so you have to bear with me a little bit. I have the best luck, as Roger knows.
What's going to happen next?
I don't know. I'm going to be.
Does Chris have to wear a mask since we're on Zoom or what? I don't know.
No. I'm clear of my COVID is all done and clear. That was the last meeting. So again, apologize for the voice cracking. So continuing on, it was a big question about the impervious coverage. We had a big discussion about what the coverage is based on, the fact that we have we have to count the road portion of the road right of way within our overall coverage. We weren't including the actual pavement of the road and what was that number and how did all that work out. So we updated the impervious calculations so that you can see that in the proposed condition, so this right-hand column, the total coverage for just on the property, not in the right-of-way, I guess it's all on the property, but outside of the right-of-way, I should say, again, over the overall area of the lot is 28.8%. When you include the 2,122 square feet of pavement that's within the right of way, so that's a little bit of the driveway apron and the road itself, that adds almost 9% to the lot coverage, brings us to 37.7%. So we are over the 30% that is allowed within the zone. Again, this is really a result of, as we talked about last time, we're being penalized in effect because the road right of way is within the lot area. We can't give away that right of way. And so we're burdened with that pavement. We're burdened with that coverage. And if we had in fact been able to get rid of that right of way, that puts us a tier lower in your ordinance for non-conforming lots, and would actually allow us 40% coverage for just that which is on the lot. So just again, clarifying for purposes of the record, what the coverages are on the property and how it relates to the right of way specifically. Other amendments, excuse me, that we put in here, we updated the front setback to show it to the overhang and not to the face of the building. So the front setback is 52.5 feet. And we showed the setback of the proposed driveway, which hadn't been labeled last time, which is 2.1 feet off of that southern property line, which again is up against preserved farmland. Finally, and last but not least, you had asked us to show a reserve location for the septic field. So if the existing field went bad, where could we place it? So we have a location here to the rear of the existing shed, just beyond the front setback line, if you can believe that, where we would have a conforming system and size for what would be an advanced treatment system. So it reduces the size of the field because we sized it based on an advanced treatment unit. Excuse me. That said, I will note that it is outside of the setbacks, which your ordinance does require it to be within the building setbacks. This would be an issue at the time of having to replace the system. It does meet the state standards of being at least 10 feet off of the property lines. I would also note as part of that, the field itself with the buffer around it is 680 square feet. And the net buildable area within the setbacks is 713 square feet. So there's not really a realistic way for the septic to actually be within the building setback. I know Adam had reached out to me about the existing septic system and some concerns that were raised based on a review of records that the township had on file, that there was a concern that the existing system was not suitable. We reviewed those records, and there was notations in that report, and this hasn't been submitted to the board, so stop me if I'm going a little bit off the
No,
reservation.
I think
here,
it's
but-
appropriate to indicate that Hunterdon County Health Department, it says final paper checklist, and then there's materials attached to that along with some engineering reports. That probably should be listed as, since it is a board exhibit, we'll mark it as B1.
Okay, very good. So that notes an inspection that was completed by Bear Reese Engineering back in 2004 of the system. It noted that certain repairs were required to be made of the system, specifically cleaning laterals of some residual sludge that was in them, and making sure that the septic tank was pumped at a regular basis, as it appeared hadn't been. That paperwork also notes that the system was repaired in 2005. So shortly after that letter was issued, to the satisfaction of the county health department, all those records of the county signing off on it. The Bear Reese letter also had stated that with those, if those repairs were to be made, which again, they subsequently were, that the system would be suitable for, the reconstruction and connection of a 3-bedroom house to the system. So I know there's some concerns about the viability of the existing system. Based on our review of those documents, our opinion does not change that the system is still viable and as to be used for the house, and it does not need to be replaced. We do note that we are required to go to the county health department and get approval from the county health department for the work that's proposed and get their confirmation that the system is appropriate, and that certainly will be done. And if there again were to be an issue with the system would have to be replaced, and we show on the plan a location where it could be replaced to. I believe that summarizes the changes that we made to the plan.
Adam, I think,
Could
I'm
you-
sorry. Good, Roger.
Yeah, could you explain what this advanced septic system is?
Oh, sure. So traditional systems are a gravity system where you have just your tank. If you're lucky enough, you have your tank and it goes to your field. You could also have a pressure system where you go from your tank to a pumping tank, where it then gets pumped up to your field. So you have to run electricity, power goes out, you could have an issue. The advanced treatment system, what those systems are, in effect, are, I kind of view them like mini sewer treatment plants. For a while, advanced treatment systems were either peat or coconut fiber filter systems. Now they're generally basically complex aeration tanks. So what it does is where your normal septic tank provides a level of treatment and settling of solids before it goes and discharges to the field, an advanced treatment system far exceeds the level of treatment that you would get in a standard tank. So you get an increased level of treatment, and because of that, you require a smaller field size, because you're not, your septic field has 2 parts to it. It has your zone of treatment, where the treatment finishes off after it's gone through the tank, and then it goes through your zone of disposal, where you're then getting it back into the ground. Because you're treating it to such a high level within the tank, you end up requiring a smaller field because you don't need as much treatment in the field. You talk to any of the manufacturers and they will tell you that you can drink the water right out of the tank because it comes out so clean. I wouldn't, the thought of it, no, thank you. However, that's basically how clean these systems are once they, once it's run through that system. So that's what an advanced treatment system is. It's just the tank is a much higher end tank that provides a very high level of treatment to the effluent before it gets to the field. And then based on that, the state allows a reduced sizing of the field.
Does the system that you've just described, is it a mechanical system? Is it an electronic system? How is it function or powered by some other mechanism other than just simply the natural flow?
Yes, it is. And just to clarify again, this would be a potential replacement system. This is not what's currently proposed.
I understand.
Okay. just making sure we're clear on it. It is powered. It does require electrical power to it. It works generally on aeration. So there's a pump that pumps air in and aerates underneath the tank, and that assists in settling out solids from the from the tank, as well as just the general geometry and setup within the tank.
Thank you. Did you have a question with regard to the area of the alternative disposal field?
Well, just to speak to that, I agree with everything that Chris has indicated. There are other areas in the township where homeowners with undersized lots, for example, in Quakertown, there are a lot of smaller lots with single-family homes, and it's a densely developed area. And a lot of those systems are failing now. And they are also installing these types of aeration systems with the approval of the county health department, of course. So that would be something that the applicant, the Tellias, would have to seek in the future if they needed to replace this system. Just to touch on the reserve disposal area that's indicated on Chris's plan, based on the records that we were able to obtain from the health department, that area was an area of waste disposal during that cleaning operation and retrofit that was done in 2005.
Right.
So that's just something to put on the record, that it might need to be, cleaned up in the future, just so everyone's aware. And that'll have to be disposed of off-site likely, because you won't have anywhere to put that. So
Yeah, we are touching into the existing system slightly as well. So
yeah,
we would have to either dispose of off-site or find a new spot on site to bury that material. But so far as there's an issue with, obviously it's noted with the health department and they wouldn't let us get away with.
yeah, they have it on. It's from their file that I'm quoting their file. So, and the other item, I was just curious, Chris, if you could speak to it. Has there been any coordination at this time with the health department, or is everything kind of being held off until we discover the outcome of this application before this board?
I don't believe a formal application has been made yet to the county.
And I think that's everything. I think Chris went through everything. I discussed all my concerns with him, and he's covered everything else.
Right,
Mr.
well,
Chairman, I just had a couple just quick questions. I just wanted to put on the record with Chris, if you don't mind. Chris, in your planning opinion, do you see any detriment if that new proposed area for the septic system needed to come before this board for approval, since it is outside the setback lines? But do you feel that there's any detriment to adjacent properties or anything like that if down the road the system needed to be located in that area?
No, I think actually the opposite. Noting where that system is, noting where the existing system is, and noting where the well is on the neighboring property, it actually brings us further away from that well. Again, it's a cleaner system, it's a better system. The property which goes along the west and the south of the property is preserved farmland. There's no structures there, so there's nobody to impact. So I think on the whole, it's actually a benefit.
Okay. And I'll try not to make you talk much longer. Any changes to your previous planning testimony as a result of the changes to these plans?
No, I think the arguments that we discussed last time continue. There's a hardship here, kind of summarized it a little bit before, as it results to basically the configuration a lot where the front yard setback is. Again, the front yard setback being all the way basically in the rear of the lot. The fact that we have this road right of way, which adds to the lot area from a technical sense, but not from a functional sense, and results in a higher standard of setbacks for side yard, lot coverage, etc., than would otherwise be required if the right of way wasn't counted. So again, I believe, I believe that testimonial continues.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further.
All right, I have another question. That squared off area that you show for the new, is that the disposal field, or is that the treatment tank, or?
That's a disposal field. The treatment tanks generally the same size as, roughly the same size as a septic tank, such as this tank here.
Okay, so that would have to be replaced too then?
Yes, in the case where the system would be replaced, there would be a new tank that would go in.
Okay, now, based on those records that we have in the existing system, that was replaced in 2005, and I think the engineering report contributed to the problem with the system that was there, to the fact that the tank hadn't been pumped out regularly. And I think what the recommendation was that tank should be pumped out every 2 years. Well, that was 17 years ago. Do we know, seeing that the same owner was in there, do we know if that tank had been pumped regularly?
I'm not aware of I'm not aware of the pumping records of the system, if it had or not. I'm just not privy to that information.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, if that tank hadn't been pumped, right now, who knows what condition that disposal field is in. We don't know how that field may be functioning right now.
I mean, obviously, Mr. Chairman, if there is an issue with that current field, it would be discovered during construction if the board should approve this application. And thankfully, we have an alternative. Hopefully that will not need to be utilized, but if it does, then the applicant would be back before this board for approval of, to the extent required by your ordinance. I haven't looked at that aspect of this for this hearing, but to the extent that it would be required for the relocation of that. The only alternative would be if the board was so inclined and wanted to grant those additional variances this evening in the concern that may happen sooner rather than later. We certainly would not object to that as an alternative, if and when that ever came down the pike.
One point of clarification, whoever can clarify this. I think, Adam, that according to the county records, the existing system was designed for 3 bedrooms. I believe that's what you said.
It was designed.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just to refresh my memory, how many bedrooms are being currently proposed?
3.
So it's no change in the number of bedrooms.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
The existing house only has 2 bedrooms in it.
right.
Right, but it was designed for 3.
It was designed for 3 and we're proposing 3.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused. I mean, if you had, I don't know what the current county requirements are, but I know, back in the day, the state sets the standards for the septic system, but the county requirements exceeded the state requirements for a disposal field by 50%. So now I'm going to ask Adam, that field that's there, is that size for 3 bedrooms by the county standards or by the state standards?
Well, I checked the report that the county had indicated it was sized for 3 bedrooms in 1981 when it was originally constructed. It was then repaired and cleaned and retrofit back in 2005. And Bayer Reese's determination was it could continue to be used in the future for 3 bedrooms as long as the tank was maintained and pumped every 2 to 3 years. So that was the determination, and that's part of the county record. So the county accepted that determination.
And Adam, didn't that report say it was marginally acceptable for 3 bedrooms?
Correct. So in order to be used for 3 bedrooms, it would have to have that not guaranteed, but consistent maintenance schedule, essentially. So that's why I had asked, Chris, whether there was any coordination at this time with the county health department to determine the suitability of the existing system. That we could be confident that what's being proposed will be, it can be constructed. But I guess that hasn't been done.
And Roger, would it be then appropriate to condition this approval? I know that all projects will have to go to the county for approval of the septic, but we could specifically condition it. And I suppose we could also pick up a phone and just alert them to the concerns to make sure they're addressed. Wouldn't that be a feasible way of handling this?
Well, you've answered your own question. You absolutely would end up having the right to condition this on county approval, and then you can include in the findings of the resolution the concerns that you have, and even for that matter, included in a condition that the county be made aware that the approval of this system is 17 years old, and that there's a need to, in the opinion of the board, there's a need to investigate the status of the field and or the tank to assure that the recommendations of the engineer at that time in 2004, November, have, at least as best as they can determine, been carried out, and whether or not the system is continued to be viable as a 3-bedroom system. They then would be in a position, they obviously have jurisdiction to make that determination, and they could say, yes, it works, or they could end up indicating, based upon that information and their investigation, that the system now doesn't work, and the applicant would then potentially be required to use the alternative system or to install the alternative system.
And if that turned out to be the determination and the applicant had to come back with the new system, would the applicant then come before the board again just with regard to the issue of setbacks?
Obviously, if it's granted, if this approval is granted, without that approval, yes, they come back for just that.
Okay.
I have a question again to clarify the side yard setbacks. On the new revised variance 3 of 5, the table in the top right corner is listing 1 side yard setback variance, but I think last time we talked about the south also needing it because the paved area would come up a few feet off the property line. Is that still correct? Because it's not reflected on here.
The table is reflective of the structure, but you are correct that we noted it separately underneath here, underneath the table.
Yeah, I'm still looking at a really tiny copy, so, okay.
Yeah, no worries. I totally understand where you're coming from. So yes, we are still looking for that relief for this portion of the driveway on the south side. And again, we had noted that it's 2.1 feet off that property line.
A question. I believe the arguments regarding the variances have to do with the fact that it's an undersized lot. And because of the fact that it's undersized, it creates a hardship on the applicant to make this use of the property. But is it really a hardship? I mean, there could be many other homes built on this property that had lesser requirements for variances. Obviously, some things you just can't change. You can't change the width of the lot and that sort of stuff. But wouldn't this wouldn't the real justification for a project be for this, that in some way, the goals and objectives of the municipal land use law would be better met by granting these variances than by not granting them. But I haven't heard any arguments to that effect presented.
I will let Chris respond to that. I thought that he covered this under both the C1 and the C2, but Chris, I'll let you provide some additional testimony. And then if you could just also kind of point out, the issue of the front yard setback and how that's going to be an issue regardless of what's placed on the property. And then whatever else you have to address the board members' concerns.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously the physical actual conditions on the lot can't be changed. The front yard is what it is. The fact that there's 713 square feet of net buildable area is what it is, right? I think when we're looking at the hardship variance here, the thing that we're looking at, and when I'm discussing that specifically, we're looking at the fact, not just that it's an undersized lot, but it's an undersized lot that, again, is burdened by the road right of way. That is included pre-ordinance. From a technical standpoint, that road right of way is part of the lot. And so it contributes to the lot area. It contributes to the impervious coverage on the lot. And when you look at it, though, it does not functionally contribute to the lot as lot area, and it doesn't functionally contribute as usable impervious that you would normally consider. It's great when I'm driving on the road, going back and forth to work if I come that way, but it's great for them when they're trying to get into the house, but it's a public road. The point is, if that road right of way was not included in the lot area, that the side yard setback changes, right? It goes from 20 feet to 15 feet. And now this side yard complies. The lot coverage goes to 40%, and it would just be that which is on the lot, and that would comply. So the hardship isn't just that it's an undersized lot. It's that it's an undersized lot that is being calculated as a 0.5 to 1 acre lot as you classify it, where functionally it's less than a half an acre lot. So from a functional standpoint, it operates as a 0.49 acre lot, which is a different standard set that your ordinance allows. And that gets rid of a number of the variances, especially as it relates to the building setbacks and the lot coverage. So that's really where the hardship is in that. Yes, there is arguments to be made, on a, from the other perspective of it, that we are advancing purposes of zoning by taking a small house, this lot that's, in need of in being spruced up and, putting this, excuse me, just about ran out of water here. We have, we're adding to the visual environment here. Again, this is a very unique house. It's a very creative design. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. So everybody can have their opinion on the fact that it's a unique house. But I think it's a very attractive house that uses the landscape and its surroundings to enhance itself. At the end of the day, I think we are advancing, excuse me, purposes of zoning with that. And, from a negative impact perspective, this is a property that's located generally surrounded by preserved farmland, where we're not impacting anybody. We have one home to the north that we could potentially impact. We have added landscaping here to address any concerns related to visibility within there. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, there's no substantial detriments here as it relates to, you know, developing this or redeveloping this residential property.
And Chris, just to kind of be clear on the variance issue and the point of the right of way, the minimum lot frontage is the same. I'm just want to go through each one just so everybody's clear. The minimum lot frontage is the same existing and proposed. So that's a pre-existing nonconformity, correct?
Yes.
So the minimum lot width, same thing, pre-existing nonconformity, same existing and proposed.
Correct.
Same thing with minimum lot depth.
Correct.
And I'm going to jump to minimum side yard setback. Well, going to what you discussed before, if in fact this right of way that is not usable was not counted, then our side yard setback requirement would be reduced to 15 feet and we would comply as it relates to the structure.
Correct.
And same thing for impervious coverage. We wouldn't need variance for impervious coverage if we didn't count this right of way, because we would be able to have 40% as opposed to the 30.
Right, and the overall percentage would go down. So it would still be above 30, but it would be, yes, it would meet the 40%.
Would meet the 40. So the only variance, if we did not look at this right of way that we would be dealing with tonight, is for a minimum front yard setback. And we have a requirement of 150. And there's a, what is the existing and proposed of that front yard setback?
Well, the existing, you can see the existing front of the house as it, are we not going to scroll in here? We're not going to scroll in here. Cool. So this dashed line is the overhang. There we go. Took a second. So you can see the existing front of the house, the entry awning extends in front of slightly the proposed overhang. So at 52.5 feet, they're basically the same.
Okay, so it may be a small difference, but if we took out this right of way, that's really the only variance that we're talking about that would be necessary. Obviously, we're asking for everything because the reality of the ordinance is what it is.
Right.
And the county not being interested in taking title to that area. But that's the practical aspect of what we're asking for.
Isn't there really another variance?
Yes. And I was
That's
about
the
to go through.
driveway?
And the, right.
The
so we have the
2.1 feet, correct.
Right, so we have the setback for the driveway at 2.1 feet. And the testimony last time was, again, this is a fairly busy county road. There's no parking on the road itself. So what this allows, where we could reduce this setback or increase the setback and reduce the driveway so that it at least came closer to complying. This allows for additional parking for guests on the property, where, I mean, I think everybody's very aware of where this is and what the road looks like there. There is no opportunity for parking anywhere nearby if it's not on the lot. So what this allows for is, quite frankly, safety improvements in not having people trying to, you know, park and walk along the road, just kind of, you know, running off, excuse me, running off the side where they can, parking in the grass somewhere, parking in the lawn and, you know, in the front yard here of the house. You know, it ultimately what we have is a safety benefit by allowing for this additional pavement here to accommodate guests that come to the house.
So in your opinion, because of that safety benefit, this particular variance would contribute to better meeting the goals of the municipal land use law?
Yes. And again, when it comes to the negative impacts of it, we have pavement. It does not, again, we don't really have any substantial impacts to anybody. We're right against, yes, we're 2.1 feet from that property line. But again, that's the farm field next door. It's preserved. There's no structures. So there's nobody immediately adjacent to us that we're going to be suddenly on top of, that you're trying to, avoid being right on top of, which is, again, the point of having these, having your setbacks and why you have those rules in place. So again, my opinion is, yes, that this variance can be granted. It does advance the purposes of the municipal land use law. It does promote the public safety, and it does it in a way without any substantial detriment.
Chris, this is Phil. I understand, and I have no problem with that, with the side yard, with the driveway. But to say that currently there's no structure in the adjacent property is correct. But there's nothing to stop the preserved farm from adding structures because they have the right to farm up into the setback on the adjacent property. So that would encroach on, if they build a barn or a structure used for farming purposes, there would be an impediment on that because they would be adjacent to the current property. I mean, I know right now, because nothing's there, you have all that open space. And
Right.
but you are going up right against that white fence that goes along the property line.
Correct.
2.1 something feet. And I don't have a problem with that because there's a lot of open space there. But just to say that it's not going to impede on the adjacent property, I think is misleading because it could if they build something on that property.
The only thing I would say is that I think that the testimony, and Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the testimony relates to what's currently there.
Right, okay.
Well, yes.
And is that
I would-
proposed driveway a stone driveway, given the potential
It'll be-
future impact?
No, it'll be paved.
Well, that brings into the question, kind of the issue that I think that was just brought up, right? So are you proposing that to be a stoned driveway to create the runoff? You got, looks like the water would flow onto the preserved farmland.
The water is set to drain towards the front and away from the farmland. So right now you have a large area of the site that is draining towards the preserved farmland, and we're actually redirecting a significant portion of that out to the county road away from the farm. Just going back to and touching on the structures on the farm. I don't know that it's entirely true that they could build a barn or any structures out within the preserved portion and outside of the exception area. I seem to remember actually, and it was in Franklin Township, don't know that I necessarily should bring up Mr. Den Hollander, but Mr. Den Hollander had constructed quite a number of structures on land that he had preserved and was required to remove them by the state because it had been preserved land. And that was the nature of he had built greenhouses on it, and that was the nature of his approval. So
I think with that, Chris, they had to take them down because they changed the grade of the property to put the greenhouses on. It wasn't just on the preserved portion of it. They changed these slopes and they leveled the property, which you can't do that in a preserved farm, a preserved property.
right, he did it on quite a large area, and he disturbed the topsoil, and the whole reason why they were preserving the farm. I completely understand that. Again, I think the farm, I understand the concern. It is ultimately that would be a farm structure that would be built there.
Okay.
So a driveway closer to a barn, I don't see that as being an impact. It'd be a bigger impact to me is if it was a house.
Right.
I was in there, and you were building next to, where somebody was living, as opposed to something more functional like a barn. So again, I don't really see it as a substantial impact.
Some of the preserved properties, don't they allow for additional residences to be added if like the farm wanted to build for their children? It's happened on a few farms in the township. Is that a specially marked out area when the property is preserved, or can that be added in later?
No, that has to be done when the property's preserved.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
my understanding. It has to, the exception areas have to be set at the time.
Are there any potential for materials? There's a lot of impervious. I'm assuming the patios, some kind of concrete or something solid. Is there anything that could be used to try to bring down maybe some of what's going on in the driveway or the patio area? It's just a lot of impervious cover, even if it's able to be calculated one way or the other to be close. It still seems like the lot's very overbuilt.
To be honest, the amount of impervious coverage on the lot itself, excluding the right of way, it's about 6,800 square feet of coverage. At the end of the day, that amount of coverage, it's really not that much coverage, my experience. I mean,
Chris, excuse me, Chris.
Yes, sir.
This is Avi Telius, the applicant. What we could do, and I've done this in other projects, we can use grass pavers for the driveway. And those, as you know, allow you to drive, but also a high percentage of it just percolates into the ground. I don't know if that can help.
It would, and I think if you're willing to offer that, I think the place to offer that is on the kind of this area up here on the top of the driveway. It's not appropriate on a 12% slope.
Right.
As you're coming in. You also want this to be paved, so it's obvious that that's your driveway. But beyond the overhang, because obviously you want to be beyond the overhang so that the rain falls on it. So again, further addressing concerns about the neighboring property, yes, we could do grass pavers on this upper landing area to reduce it.
Yeah, so in the setback area, we could do grass pavers there, and I think that would actually be nice.
I would
I'll leave
suggest,
it to Adam or Roger as to whether those grass pavers still constitute impervious coverage based on your ordinance. But I would submit that even if they do, it would still be a benefit that you could look to that would be helpful in allowing that additional water to perk. Even though we're addressing any and all stormwater by way of the facilities on the property, that may allay some concerns. But I'm not sure if that's impervious as well.
along these lines, I would suggest that, the grass pavers would not be inconsistent with the latest revisions and NJDEP stormwater management rules, and they don't have to be grass pavers. It can just be permeable pavement. So that, I think it's a good idea to look, wherever you can use permeable paving, especially in this one area we're talking about, the flatter area above the driveway. I think that's good, even though you do have stormwater management. That would sort of be a belt and suspenders. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think it would be also aesthetically, it'll be nice. So I'm all for the grass pavers or something similar in that area that's in the setback right there. Yeah, I like the idea.
So it would be what you're suggesting, so that's clear for the record, it would be in the more or less the square area that would be the essentially from the area where the overhang is beginning to the end of the driveway, and then the area up to the side yard. That would all be either a grass paver or a pervious paver area.
No.
Yeah, no, that's what I was proposing.
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
I thought we were just going to go to the setback line.
No, from
Well,
the setback.
I think he's offering to the entirety of the entirety of
I mean,
the driveway area, so that it would be the entirety of that
Well,
area.
it would be, so if you look at it, and I don't like annotating, but this is being recorded, so I'm gonna do it. This is the overhang limit in orange.
Mhm.
This is the setback line in this dark blue. So whether we went to the setback line or the overhang, we're talking about a foot.
No, I meant to
Well,
the fence. I meant to the fence. I'm sorry, I may have said it wrong, but all the way down to where the parking ends.
That's what I thought I heard. So in
Yes,
other words,
that's what I meant. That's what
Chris,
I
why
meant.
don't you outline the area on the screen? Yes, and then
Perfect.
let's make sure everybody.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
So this,
Agreed.
this area here, sorry,
Yes.
wait,
Yeah.
nope. That area,
that's the square or rectangular area that I thought was being proposed.
yeah.
Correct, correct. I would only say that engineers should make sure that it's feasible, et cetera. But if it is feasible and it works with the slopes, et cetera, I'm all for it. I think it's actually an enhancement.
Yeah, it will work with those slopes. I mean,
Well,
we're at
then we should do it.
50%
Then we
slope.
should do it. Then we should do it.
I appreciate making the effort because I think we've seen the storms that we've been having lately and things, so we just have to be really careful about being close to the limits of what we've got on the properties.
Thank you. I think it's a win-win all around. I like the idea.
I would agree on that also. I think it's going to enhance that. I think it's, but then again, I'll leave it up to Adam to decide if it's not feasible, then, I'm okay for granting the variance for that if it's not feasible.
Well, it certainly sounds
Sure.
like, it's gonna work.
Yes, and just to speak to, thank you to Mr. Telius for suggesting that. I think that's a good way to address some of the concerns that were expressed and also to enhance, obviously, implementing some green infrastructure on the site. And I was, as everyone was talking, I was just checking the ordinance definition. So it would be considered, a surface that is covered with a layer of material that is highly resistant to infiltration by water relative to natural conditions. So if this is, the way I've seen grass pavers installed, typically they're installed with a clean stone bed underground, under the pavers, and then that would allow water to infiltrate into the ground, almost in a natural lawn condition. So it could be excluded from the impervious area by that definition. So that would help to reduce that impervious coverage strictly per the ordinance.
I haven't looked at in detail at the new rules that DEP has, but they may actually use a different impervious coverage percentage for those. Much reduced rate.
The stormwater rules wouldn't supersede the municipal ordinance on that.
No, I'm just pointing to what might be an appropriate reduction in what you consider impervious coverage.
Right, they would give you credit basically for
Right.
Yeah.
impervious coverage, right?
Any other questions by the board members?
I just have a comment relative to the shrubbery that's being proposed on one side of the proposed house.
I guess on the north side?
Yeah. You're showing rhododendron in there, and the deer problem that we have in town here, they'll eat those right down to the ground. So just a
Well,
suggestion.
they can be substituted for whatever Adam believes is a more deer resistant plant.
Yeah,
Hard to find a deer resistant plant if they get really hungry, but nonetheless, there are some.
yeah.
I'm actually,
What happens, they'll stay away from them until you get snow on the ground or it gets real cold, and then they go right after them. I know.
and I'm actually surprised. I was happy to see rhododendron because I have rhododendron around my entire house, and that's the only thing the deer don't eat. They eat everything else. but
Everybody's
the-
got,
You got
everybody
one
has a
deer
different
over
story.
If the winters get harsh enough, they'll eat it.
Right.
I don't know. I just put deer food on my neighbor's property.
Got to be less attractive than the next guy, right?
Yeah.
All right, anybody else on the board have any questions on this? All right, I'm gonna ask if anybody from the public has any questions on this. Okay, I don't hear anything. Do you have anything else that you need to present?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I think just quickly to sum up, I believe that we've done our very best to respond to all the board's comments and concerns. Even more so tonight with this addition of the grass pavers or permeable pavement. I believe that the board has enough information in front of it to make a determination that the variances can be granted both from a C1 and a C2 perspective based upon the testimony of Mr. Nusser. I do feel it's important to note that the only neighboring property owner has not had any objection. I think that it will be a good addition to the township.
All right, thank you.
The only question I would have as you start deliberating, if I'm hearing Adam correctly, even though this permeable paver, grass paver addition is welcomed, it still would constitute impervious coverage. So there's no need to alter the variance that we'd be asking for from the impervious coverage requirements. And if
I think it would be a good idea to include that as part of it. That way there's no question. I understand what Adam said. He may very well be right, and he probably is, but I think it's probably in your client's best interest to continue to ask for it, recognizing what you what your client has already offered. And the fact of the matter is that would obviously be a condition of the approval anyway, so.
I entirely agree. Just wanted to make sure we were clear as everyone was talking about that.
Right. Mr. Chairman, if in fact there's no other comments or questions, it would be appropriate that if there's going to be an approval, and I do think it's helpful, again, I think it's helpful to end up having a motion to approve, simply because that way everybody knows if you vote in favor, you're voting in favor of the application. If you vote no, you're voting in the negative. And I say this to you and to all boards, not to encourage you to vote one way or the other. It's just for easy clarification so that everybody understands what it is that they're voting for. And in this particular case, it would be for the variances that have been outlined, and it would also include as conditions to incorporate, excuse me, what has now been submitted as A3, which are the revised plans, A4, which is the revised architectural plans. It would also include the requirement for the area of the driveway that was outlined. And I'm sure that either Adam or Chris can give me some details as to what the square footage of that area is at the appropriate time when the resolution gets adopted, if it gets approved. That area would be either grass pavers or appropriate pervious pavers. The other question that I leave to the mover is whether or not you wanted, I think there's also the requirement that there's a need to include the variance for the 2.1 foot side yard, just to be clear that in the event that the grass pavers or pervious pavers do not constitute or do constitute impervious coverage, that you're granting it with the condition that they are required to put in the grass pavers. That would be, unless there's any other conditions that the board members have thought of that I have not included, those would be the conditions that I would include in a resolution. Again, I'm not suggesting that the resolution should be approved. It's just a matter for voting purposes.
And just to add to Roger's conditions, frequently, any application before the board is also conditioned on, prior to construction permits being issued, that all outside agency approvals are secured. And this would include the county health department with regards to the septic, the county soil conservation district with regards to the disturbance on the lot during construction, and the county engineers or road department for the improvements to the driveway. So those would also be added as conditions.
Thank you, Adam. I would include them normally, but I'm glad you brought them up because I wanted to be very specific about the county health department because there's been a lot of talk about that. So it's all county agencies, including the health department, the road department, and the soil conservation.
Okay, having heard all of that, would somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve said application.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Wait a minute, maybe we want to discuss this a little bit.
Sure.
We could.
Yeah, Adam, just real quick, this new type of septic system, how did they, I guess, function time-wise compared to the traditional systems that are currently being used?
Sure. So traditional systems are, pumped on a multi-year basis. When you have a standard tank and you maintain the disposal bed as needed. The advanced treatment systems that I've seen installed, I haven't designed them myself, but based on my review of the plans and other requirements, the companies actually have maintenance contracts with the homeowners, and they have to, on a yearly basis or a 6-month basis, depending on the loading, they come and inspect the system. There's an alarm, there's a monitoring plan that's in place, and no, they do require additional attention because they do have additional maintenance requirements, additional operational requirements. As Chris had mentioned, there's an aerator system that helps to digest the solids and the waste and then dispose of it. So all of those things require maintenance, require observation, and it's not really a kind of a simple septic system. It is an advanced system. So frequently, those maintenance contracts are conditions of county health department approvals as well. And those are frequently on file at the county as well as with the township construction office. So those, and I believe they also have to record those with the deed. So if in the future, if the Teleuses ever wanted to leave, which I don't think they would, the future homeowner would also be made aware that the system is an advanced system that requires additional maintenance and care to maintain its operation.
Adam, that's what I was going to ask in terms of, the fact that the county would be requiring, is it your understanding that the county does require that those kinds of conditions be part of any approval that it granted?
Yes, that's what would be a condition of the county health department approval if and when an advanced system is installed on.
I understand.
Yeah, right.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking you this is because, the size of this lot, and I mentioned in the last meeting that when we have these small lots, we always have a condition in there that they should have an area for a replacement field, in the event that the current one fails. Okay, it can't be rehabilitated or repaired. But in this case, what we're doing, we have a current field that's 17 years old. Okay, we don't know if the tank has been pumped out every 2 years like the engineer recommended. Okay, and we're given a tentative replacement field in case the current one fails. Okay, but I guess my concern is, that they mentioned that, maybe during the construction process of the house, they may find out that the current field has to be replaced, which would therefore mean that they wouldn't be showing a potential future septic system in case the the one that they're operating now fails. You know where I'm going with this, right?
I mean, they do show that area on the plan. And
But the thing is, we're looking at potentially giving approval for this, okay? But suppose during the construction process, they decide that the field that they have right now, that's 17 years old, needs to be replaced. Then they would be using the reserve, so-called reserve field. So my question is there's still someplace on that lot that they can put another system like that, just in case, because what we're doing is forever. It's not something that's going to go away in 5 years.
As I understand your concern, Roger, and I appreciate it. If they found during the course of construction that the system has not been pumped and it's becoming faulty, that would require, it would seem to me, a brand new review by the county to be able to put in either another repair and or the aeration system that has been outlined by both Adam and by Chris. That's my understanding. They would not be in a position necessarily to be putting in another standard, I'll call it a standard septic system, but it would have to be a more sophisticated alternative system.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is our requirement is that they show that they have an area that they can put another system in case the one they have failed. But there's a potential that before they even get into the house, they may have to use that reserve spot.
Correct. They might.
Right. If I may, I don't know if I may, because you're in discussions, but I think I can help assuage the chair's concern.
Go ahead.
Because the system has a maintenance contract and so the maintenance is happening, it's required to happen. The system maintains its functionality. The biggest reason that systems fail is because the field clogs, right? The disposal field is going to clog up and it can't take the water anymore. As I said before, the water that leaves that tank, they tell you it's drinkable. Not saying you should, again, but the water is drinkable that comes out of there. It's doing such a good job settling out material in that tank that what gets to the field is just water. So while there is still a zone of treatment that's required in it, the material, there's nothing getting out there that would fail it. So realistically, other than maintenance of the tank itself, the field itself isn't getting solids where it can fail. The field itself is getting clean water. So you're not getting a biomat buildup on it. You're not getting solids coming out and clogging the field. So when you put this in, that's it. You just maintain it. At some point, you're probably gonna have to replace the tank because the tank's only gonna last so long, the equipment in it. But the field itself, which is the thing we're concerned about, that only ever gets clean water. So you should not have that concern that it's going to be, you're suddenly going to need another place to put a field.
And that's your concern, Mr. Chairman, right? You're saying that typically on undersized lots, the board likes to see an alternative location. We've
Right.
provided an alternative location, but your concern is what if that alternative immediately has to become the primary? Then
Exactly.
at that point, where's our second alternative? And I think that's what Chris was trying to go to, which is you don't need one if it's done right. And assuming that deed restriction has to be placed on the property for now and going forward from the county, if it ever gets to be that point where that is necessary, seems like we may be okay.
I'm sorry, maybe I missed something, but can't you get, or maybe you have the septic system inspected for $1,200? Can't you determine right now if that field is serviceable or not? I mean, every homeowner can do that, has to do it at times. So was that done, and why wouldn't it be done before this?
We have no reason to believe that septic system doesn't work as it's intended to. So I think the concern is that if something changes between now and construction, then what's the issue? Which I think is what Chris was addressing.
All right, I just want to clarify. The reason I'm asking you, because we really don't have any history with these types of systems. Okay, that's why I was asking about it.
Sure.
A question related to Rogers for Adam. Let's say this happened, and now we're using this advanced treatment system with an alternative field. Couldn't you renovate the old existing field?
You
And
could.
that would still then be able to be used as a reserve field if you needed it?
Correct. I mean, and I think Chris spoke to that at the last hearing, that if needed, if there was additional space needed, the old system could be removed and soil could be replaced, and all the contaminated fill and equipment and material will be removed and disposed of. It's just a more expensive proposition. I think, it's easier for homeowners if you're, let's say you're developing a smaller home, a 1,500 square foot ranch. And if you have a half acre, you could put 2 fields there. And if in 20 years, 1 field fails, you don't have to do anything with that. You just leave it in place and build a new field somewhere else. But when you're building a more intensive development on a smaller lot, you have to understand that you're going, and this is of course up to the Tellius as the applicant. They understand that they're kind of getting into this situation. The other thing I just wanted to speak to is the advanced treatment systems are installed and do exist in the township now. We've seen them come before the township's Board of Health frequently for approval. And again, and I don't have the count in my head, in front of me right now, but it's probably at least 4 or 5 that have been installed in the last 5 years that I've been involved in the township. So they do frequently, because there are a lot of old cesspool systems in town, old other trench disposal systems such as this, and all of them now are reaching their end of service life or beyond their service life. And the only way that the county health department will approve a septic on these smaller lots, single family lots, are these advanced systems. So we do see a lot of them go in.
And Roger, this is Phil. What we did on the committee level, and so basically based on what Adam just suggested, is a lot of things that basically just take professionals' advice. The committee has left it up to the professionals, especially for Board of Health issues and for septic replacements, to leave it up to them instead of having the applicant come before the committee, come before the Board of Health in the township. It saves them time, saves them money. I mean, Adam, you can speak to that.
Yes. So thanks, Mayor. So yeah, we'll frequently get the correspondence from the applicant's engineer when there is a septic system replacement going on, and we'll get coordination with their engineer as well as with the county health department. And all these things that we're talking about in terms of deed restrictions, maintenance agreements, all those things are reviewed and implemented prior to construction of any system. So, and the same would apply here.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up, and I guess that's a non-issue then.
The only question I would have, and I'm just, kind of throwing it out there, not to belabor the issue. Is the board at all interested in granting the setback variances for that additional field? Should that be necessary? So that then becomes a non-issue, and we could include as a condition that in the event that the current field is determined to be inoperable based upon lack of maintenance, whatever the proper terminology is, that would automatically be utilized as the new location in accordance with the variances that were granted. Just kind of trying to put a belt and suspenders on the concern and streamline it a little bit. But of course, I leave that up to the board.
Okay.
If, I understand the comment, and if the board, there is a motion, there is a second, you are discussing it. If there is a desire to include that, there would be a need to amend the motion to include that variance. I think, Dave, you were the one, I think, that made the motion.
Yes, I would say not.
Okay. So the motion is as previously outlined.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, Catherine, you want to call a roll?
Sure. Roger Soltis,
Yes.
Ken Weiss, Ken Weiss,
Ken, are you on mute, Ken?
Sorry, yes.
Phil Corey,
Yes.
Stephen Willis,
Yes.
Mike Shabra,
Yes.
Dave Dallas,
Yes.
Jennifer Fisher,
Jen, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I think she
The
might have.
space bar isn't working for some reason. Yes.
Okay.
Jonathan A.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you. Well, the resolution will be prepared and hopefully available for the next meeting. We'll send you a copy.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and have a wonderful evening.
You do the same.
Thank you,
You're
everyone.
welcome.
Take care.
Thank you so much to everybody on the board. Thank you.
Good luck to you. All right, the next item on the agenda is comments from the public.
Excuse me.
No comments or questions from the public?
I don't see any hands raised.
All right.
If anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves, but I don't see anybody.
All right, Catherine.
Oh, wait a second, there is one from Irv.
Irv,
Irv, if you want to unmute yourself.
There
we go.
Are you able to be shown on camera?
Yeah, I can do that, I think, now live.
There
There we go. Just a little challenge on technology.
You and me both.
I just want to make a comment. Garden State Grower was brought up in the discussion earlier. And it appears that the mayor and maybe the land use board believe that the buildings have been removed from the land that was leveled. Well, that's not the case. You can just go on Google Maps, or you can come over in my backyard and take a look. You can still see them there. And I just figured it's a good time to let
Yeah,
everybody be aware.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, though, he hasn't even restored the land back to where it was like he was supposed to, correct?
Correct. And just now that we're on here and we popped this back in, maybe 6-8 years ago, part of the discussion was about his impervious coverage. He was supposed to take the tarp up that's behind my property, 2 acres. I believe that was part of the land use board had recommended or said he should take that up and that go back to natural, and it's still being used with the tarp, and the mums get put there every year. Just so that's all I wanted to throw in there, just so everybody's aware. It's still ongoing and never been resolved.
Thank you, sir, for that help.
Thank you.
Well, Phil, what's the mechanism? Is it the state, or do we have?
Well, basically, any farmer, they can't, they don't come before the land use board. Roger, you can verify that. They have to go before the county ag board and the state, the SADC. We have no control over the farms.
That generally is the case. I would agree. Unfortunately, the jurisdiction over farming activities is essentially taken out of the land use process as you guys know it, and is put into the ag board process. They are supposed to take into account the local ordinances. Sometimes they do, sometimes frankly they don't.
So to answer that, Ken, we have no say in that.
Yeah, no, that's good to know, because you often get questions about it, and some of the same activities in terms of pillars, for instance, at driveways come up within our own local ordinances. And, I remember having discussions about those pillars that he put in and weren't, maybe because he didn't have a building permit, or construction permit, that was us, but it's always helpful to know just what we're responsible and what we're not responsible for. And in his case, it's a little complicated for me, so I appreciate it.
It is very complicated with him.
Catherine, it looks like we have another
Yes.
individual from the public.
Yep, Bruce Doritas.
Yes,
Mr. Doritas, could we get you on camera, please, if possible?
I'm sorry, it's not possible with this phone.
Oh, okay, fine.
Bruce Doritas, 119 Locust Grove Road. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Taylor discussed about the structures that are on the preserved farm portion, and also the disturbance of the topsoil. On that section, we recently looked at a Google Map satellite image, and it appears that, just for the record, the buildings that are on it, and there are several, seem to be about 600 feet in length. And also that today I sent an email to our Assemblyman, Eric Peterson, asking Eric to request that the state ag department look into the status of the topsoil remediation. So if there's any correspondence or assistance that our land use board and or township committee, could contact Mr. Peterson's office and also express an interest in the status of the remediation. Because this goes back to, it's many years since this case was heard. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but I would guess to say, through the various appeals, it's been in excess of 15 or 20 years.
I would agree.
And this does not leave, the whole idea of farmland preservation and then having the soil removed and not remediated in due time. Mr. Den Hollander and his corporation are not doing due diligence. And I do not know that what the state had mandated as far as the time necessary to remediate.
We appreciate those comments as well. Thank you, sir.
Okay. And if there's any correspondence, I appreciate that, that we'd be kept in the loop as well as Eric Peterson.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Catherine, just a quick question. Do we have, what's coming up in the future that you know of right now?
We're still waiting. I believe the application is still being reviewed for the solar. Like I said, that was submitted to the conflict engineer. And then I believe Adam is working on a consolidation of township property.
Okay.
Catholic Church never came back, Catherine?
No, and neither did Mr. Contopodious. So.
Okay, well, I guess unless
Roger, this is Phil. Can I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
I had a meeting yesterday, and Mark Salek from the Hunterdon County Economic Development Department was there, and he and I have been in correspondence. He wants to try and get like some sort of I'm using the word inventory, but that might not be the right word, of properties that might be available for different type of development, whether it be agritourism or any type of, any type of development within the town. So before a property is preserved, or from the municipality or the county or the state, that to see if there's a list of properties that in lieu of preservation might be more beneficial for some sort of whether it be tourism, agritourism, or any type of development, just where any piece of property is preserved. So I just wanted to make, because it's the land use board, and I know that we don't make determinations for preservation, but see if there are any, if anyone knows of any properties and that are coming up that or any type of properties that might be if a farmer or a landowner is looking to sell, that that we would be able to put them on a list.
There is, Phil, there is that one farm on Oak Grove Road, over in the area where that one cell tower is. It's
Okay.
like 54 acres, and I think that's for sale. I got a sign up there.
Okay, only because my philosophy is we have to have, we can't preserve every piece of property that comes before the township anymore. Because as we want to try, and we have to have smart preservation, but we also have to have smart development in order to increase our rateable base that we have. Because several meetings we've had to try and see where the township can I call it that the township needs a second job in order to make some additional income. Because we can't always put everything on the backs of the residents. So we're just trying to think out of the box. Not only the committee level, but different groups within different groups of residents within the municipality are looking to try and come up with some out of the box thinking for revenues for the township.
Bill, I appreciate that you guys do that, and I'll put this out again. I think I'm on this subject every 3 years, but having been on the school board years ago during the construction project, and I know they're two separate animals, right? And they do their thing, we do our thing, but I forget the amount, but I think the bond payment for that enhancement is done maybe in about 2 years, could be off by a few years, but that 9 million or so bond is coming due pretty shortly. And I can't quite get a clear answer, but the town, we basically gave the school extra money, right, for the construction project. What happens when that bond's paid off? Doesn't that money get taken out of the school budget and back into the township? And I know that was somewhere around $300 or $400 of tax base for each home. Does that ever come up?
I really don't have no recollection of that. That was probably before I was on the committee.
Yeah,
and I'll talk to Cameron about that, because there was a discussion yesterday about the school. But then again, that's not under the municipality purview. And we don't control their budgets. We don't give them anything. The only thing we did give them was out of our, I believe, our open space fund. We were able to do something with I call it the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
In front, because the open space fund that we have could also be used for, Catherine, what we use that for? Open space, or also for historic preservation, I think it was. That would, you remember that? I know Christine might know the terminology better. But
I think under the, having gone through some of the last iterations of you guys, I think rightfully so, trying to find some extra money. I think a question on the ballot about if there is fungible ways of saying we gave the school $9 million, that bond is being paid off, that money as a separate question should be put to the taxpayers if it's possible to have it come back into the municipal side of the business.
Okay, but I don't know who would start that conversation. So maybe if you can send me an email and I can forward it to Cameron, our CFO.
Yeah,
But I thought it wasn't 9 million. I thought the entire renovation project was up to 12 million. Maybe it was a $9 million bond.
Well, it was, but the at that time, New Jersey kicked in $2 or $3 million.
Okay.
That was part of the kind of folklore of the town of how much was actually being
Okay.
spent. But the state ponied up, I think, 3 million or so.
Okay. And I think for clarity purposes, I think there's approximately 238 kids in our school currently right now with a $6-something million budget, if I recall.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. If you run a business, 70 or 80% is payroll and benefits, right? And you have to have one teacher, even if you've got 10 kids or 25 kids. So they are handicapped in some ways by just having sunk costs to provide. You need a principal, you need a assistant principal, you need 12 teachers, right? You can't fudge that. So, but yes, the school's half the size of what it could be. And as that bond payment's done, not to belabor it, that was extra money given to the school for that construction project. It's ending in a few years, and there should be a mechanism to return that money out of their budget into the municipal side.
And that's where I think this committee could also be considering smart development, whether it be, different type of use on different properties to try and make sure that, maybe we do some cluster housing, and we do, because I know housing was a bad terminology years ago, because you didn't want to impede, and because normally they say housing would add additional cost to a municipality. That is true, but only if you have, for the majority of the part, if you have an if you're overutilizing the school. We are so underutilized in our school. I think it was determined yesterday, we have maybe about a 50, 60 room school for additional kids without really expanding any type of school. So, that's something to think about, that if something, because what we also try and do is maybe, we're looking at this at the committee level also, and I didn't mean to take up too much time, Roger, on the land use board meeting, but to try and streamline some things, to try and make like to say basically Franklin is open for business and is user friendly, builder friendly and friendly for, we're not trying to put up hurdles to try. And I know we have to still follow the guidelines of the water and the septic, but as we saw today, if we have different type of septic systems that can be smaller, more compact, state of the art, the septic system of today is not the septic system of 25 years ago where you need all this property. So I think some out of the box thinking that, again, just the point, because I'm trying to get the word out that the municipality is looking to try and, I'm trying to run this as a business, and I don't want to constantly be in a deficit situation or being once my term is up and I leave and I say thank you very much. I want to leave, as the Boy Scouts say and the Girl Scouts say, leave the area better than you took it over. So.
Okay. I believe that Bruce, did you have another comment to make?
Yes, I was just astounded by Ken Weiss's mention of the bond that will be coming, possibly due in 2 or 3 years. That may equate out to, and correct me if I'm wrong, about $600,000 per year.
My recollection is bad. It was a 20-year bond. I know they refinanced it once or twice. So the amount of money is significant compared to the municipal budget. You're probably close, within 100,000 or so. It's been a few years since I've been on the board, so I've kind of forgotten the accounting, but
Same here, but we could possibly check with Dr. Diaz and get an update, because that is a significant amount of money.
well, yeah, I mean, my wife does some substitute teaching there, so I try to keep a low profile on this issue, but the school, having been on that side, will not want to give up that money. So it becomes a little bit of a discussion on just, can it be redirected? How is it accounted for? And I believe it would probably have to be a question on a referendum type of question to get it back.
Okay.
Let's put it this way, it's not the school's money and it's not the town's money, it's the taxpayers' money.
It is, but it's like the Titanic. The inertia is that it stays there. There has to be some dialogue.
They're not gonna give it up easily.
Right? Or the accounting of it has to be clarified to people.
But then again, that's not a municipal issue, that's not a land use issue, that basically is a school board issue. And residents have to basically go to the school board meetings as they come here, as they go to the municipality meetings, the committee meetings, to discuss and to question. Because again, we can do all the hearsay we want, but we're not gonna get the answers that maybe the proper answers. I'm not saying you're saying anything wrong, Ken. Then again, I don't think any of us here know exactly
Well, see,
what's going on in the
Right
other.
there, that therein is just not being able to get a clear answer on, does it exist in that manner and can it be redirected? Yeah, I think if we got maybe the town's attorney to, heck, I'd pay the couple $100 an hour for the research or the advice on what happens when bonds expire on school constructions and how do townships deal with the accounting there, or what is feasible? Because the school, not to take up too much, is a much different place now, like you said, than it was 20 years ago.
Okay, okay, or 30 years ago when I was on the board. Okay, that being said, I'm just wondering if there's any legal contract that was, I'm sure there's a legal contract that was written when that bond was floated, right?
That's, that's something that this board has really no control or jurisdiction. or
Right, right.
knowledge of.
Well, exactly. We'll have to look at the
Right.
school for those answers. But I
Correct.
just want to thank the mayor for mentioning our edit group meeting that we had last night with Mayor Corey and the CFO. I appreciate you mentioning that, Phil.
No problem. I just want this meeting to end before 11 o'clock, like yesterday's meeting.
I can take care of that right
Stop
now,
talking.
Phil.
Yeah. And 1 week is very difficult. I understand. Okay. Good night, gentlemen.
All right.
Good night, Bruce.
Anything else? Then,
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
second,
Second.
I just hope everyone has a happy and blessed Easter, and that we'll see you on in the end of April.
You too, Phil.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Phil.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.